Kia ora everybody and welcome to the Tiger Global Case Competition Meet the Judges. I'm just going to share my screen with everybody here. Welcome, it's Friday evening. Thank you for spending your evening with us. We are lucky to have the ANZ region. We are the biggest region for the Tiger Global Case Competition. So thank you to everybody who has signed up so far. We're excited for you to join us. I know that all of you will be looking forward to meeting your judges. So you can see on the screen here who your judges are, and we'll be introducing them to you very shortly. But we'd just like to see who the people are who are joining us tonight. So Andrew, can you please launch that poll? If everybody could please click and let us know where you currently are. We're assuming most people will be Australia and New Zealand since this is the ANZ region, but there may be some other people in here too. So once again, thank you for signing up for the Tiger Global Case Competition. My name is Jamie and I'll be your host for the next half an hour. And I work with Crimson, and Crimson has been helping power this competition. If you don't know who Crimson Education is, we help students on their pathways to top universities around the world. And along with that, we help open up opportunities like the Tiger Global Case Competition so that students can build soft skills along the way. So we won't wait for too much longer, as we do have some really interesting questions to ask our judges, and we want to make sure that everybody can hear these answers that we have. So I'll kick it off very shortly. But before we go on, I'll just briefly introduce our judges before we ask any questions. So we have three judges with us tonight. The first one is David Busson. He is currently in Auckland, so he is in New Zealand. David is an emeritus professor at the University of Otago, a Sloan Fellow at MIT, and a senior consultant at Crimson Education. David's diverse expertise ranges from business and marketing to science and design. So he has quite a wide range there in his experience. Additionally, David was the head interviewer for MIT for Australasia for 10 years. We also have Dina Kiali with us from Melbourne. Dina is the Vice President for Harvard Extension Student Association, a master's candidate at Harvard University, and a full-time marketing manager at Aerotex Pharmaceuticals in Australia. Dina has over 18 years experience in the pharmaceutical industry, including working across senior roles at the large multinational company Pfizer. Dina is deeply passionate about the potential of entrepreneurial change and dynamic leadership to create a healthier and more enlightening world. And finally, we have Scott Thompson, who is in Melbourne. So Scott is an insurance director at PwC Australia and works with companies in the energy, utilities, and mining sectors. He works with clients to optimize decisions and act on reliable and accurate data. Scott brings extensive experience in international business to Tiger Global Case Competition 2020, having worked in both the UK and Australia offices in PwC. Now, before I go even further, I just want to quickly note our two others, well, partner and a sponsor. So a big thank you and a bit of recognition for Tiger Global Management as our principal partner. And then our official sponsor is PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC. So that's great to have them supporting this big competition. Once again, we do have some important dates coming up. I'll put this up on the screen at the end as well if you'd like to take a screenshot. But one thing to note that is incredibly exciting is that we are releasing the regional case tomorrow. This is tomorrow at 7 o'clock Auckland time and 5 p.m. Sydney time. So do keep an eye on that case being released. It's a big secret up until then, but it will be released tomorrow. Upcoming this weekend, we also have two webinars that are workshops for you. Now, if you cannot make those times, we do understand that they are in the evening. They will be recorded and they will be sent to you. So do not worry, you will not miss them if you cannot make them live, but do try and make them live if you would like to ask questions as well. They'll be incredibly valuable. Finally, we'll get to those questions for the judges soon. I just want to quickly say, if you have any questions, please send them to the Q&A function. You can just type them in the Q&A and we have somebody checking those questions, both for the judges, but if you have a question about how the competition works, then you can ask them in there as well. So I'll stop sharing my screen so you can see our lovely judges' faces. So we'll kick off with the questions so you can start to meet these incredible people who will be judging you for the case competition. So the first question is, Scott, how and why did you choose the career path you are on now?
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. I guess when I was finishing high school and starting university, I knew I wanted to be a quote-unquote business person. I didn't really know what that meant, other than I thought I wanted a job that I wore a suit every day, which, as things have happened, doesn't tend to happen very much anymore. But I went down the sort of traditional commerce path, and what I did was speak to a number of people that I'd consider mentors, and they steered me towards the professional services path. And I was fortunate enough to get a graduate role with PwC through that process. And really, ever since then, it's the breadth of experiences that I've had in that role, which is what's steered where I've ended up, but also kept me along that trajectory. I've been fortunate to work with lots of different clients, lots of different industries, across a whole range of problems and service offerings. And I've also been fortunate that it's taken me around the world. I've lived in a couple of different places and got to work with clients in all different pockets around the world. I sort of always reflect on, where do I, am I still enjoying what I'm doing? And at the moment I am. And so that's what's kept me on that trajectory.
Awesome. Thank you for that. David, I'd like to ask you the same question. How and why did you choose the career path you're on now? And just to add to that, what do you like the most about your job?
I'm not sure what you call a career path now at my age, considering all you were sort of already going into it. I've done a lot of things in my life, and everything from developing the New Zealand fishing industry through being Dean of Home Science at the University of Otago. But two key things stand out in what I've done. One is in my academic career, and I've been heavily involved in the developing of business schools globally. So I teach MBAs. I in particular teach design thinking now, but I teach in France, Italy, the UK, China at the present. I accredit business schools globally. So I travel a great deal. This links in with I've been involved now with Crimson for the last 4 years. So this has been taking what I had done in my academic career into using it in the development of students. And then this is developing of students, the strategy. I do everything from strategy, I do projects, I do career mentoring with Crimson, and I'm given all their oddball things that they can't quite know where to put somewhere. I often take those on. A couple of key things in all this is I've had 4 right-angle changes in career, total right changes, which I never anticipated. I've only ever applied for 2 jobs in my life. All the rest have come to me. And you've got to be prepared to look at opportunities. And so your career may take a very different path than what you think it does. Well, I get the greatest pleasure out. A couple of years ago, I taught in France. Well, I teach in France. And I went back 6 months later, and I was standing on the campus there, and this kid came up to me and said, "In January, you changed my life." And that's what I want to do. When I take students on, I want to take students where you don't know you can go. And that's what my prime thing is. And I get an enormous pleasure out of seeing people succeed. And there's 2 aspects to this. One, I have been very fortunate to have got at least 1, if not 2, Rhodes Scholars out of New Zealand and Australia every year for the last 3 years. I've done that, so their success is mine. The second thing is I mentor I mentor people now from, I think, from 14 to 50, well, older than that. And it's a chain. They'll do someone as we go. So it's a development network, a chain, and that sort of thing. So I get immense pleasure in development of people.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Dina, this is a very similar question to the one I asked Scott and David, but I'd like to rephrase it a little bit more. When you were a teenager, did you have a set career path in mind? If so, did this change over time?
Oh, great question. So when I was a teenager, literally just yesterday, I had this image of me in big corporate. So similar to Scott, I guess, that, you had this image of wanting to be in business. I loved the idea of being in a power suit, with heels, walking confidently in the airport, dragging, my neatly packed roller luggage behind me to my next important interstate or international work meeting. And I really held that image in my head, but I also coupled it with this specific industry goal. So I knew that I wanted to work for a lucrative and high profile industry for all the career opportunities and exposure to the corporate world that it would really give me. So I decided from then to set my sights on the pharmaceutical industry. And I wanted a commercial role. So I knew I'd need a degree in management. But I also thought to give me that edge, I would do my undergrad degree in pharmacy so that I have a solid background in the nuts and bolts of the industry itself. And that really proved to be key. It was about combining that scientific depth with the commercial acumen needed for management roles within the pharmaceutical industry that really helped define my role and get me ahead as well. So my advice would be to be very methodical about what you want. Hold an emotional image or vision in your mind that will help you make that much needed connection to it with the heart. But then also plan out your study paths so that you can reach where you want to in the most straightforward manner. I think it's, always better to be in control of shaping your destiny, even if it's not entirely, you're not entirely sure what it is that you want just yet. But definitely don't underestimate the power of a formal education, furthering your studies whenever you can. Firstly, it's that really important foot in the door, but then it can also give you that much needed edge over other applicants that you'll need going forward. So yeah, I wouldn't say that my career path has necessarily changed over time. I think that's the beauty about the industry that I chose, is that there are many different paths and opportunities to explore within it. So I haven't been short of new challenges or new outlooks of the business within my chosen field.
Right. I think there's one thing that is a theme among all of you three, but also other people have been asking lately, is a lot of high school students. I remember being at high school and you feel like you need to know what you're doing next, and you need to know what your career is going to be straight away, and things are going to change. And although there may be a line that you want to go down, it's not going to be always as you expect it. And so you don't have to feel like you have absolutely everything planned out from when you leave high school. So that's a really important thing for people to hear when they're at high school, I think, as well. Thank you. There are a lot of students in saying that are coming to the end of their high school, and they'll start thinking about what they're doing next, if they want to go to university, where they want to go to university, what kind of thing they want to study. So Scott, the next question is for you. What are the main qualities you look for when hiring, as this question may help everybody here? How can students develop their qualities through the extracurriculars?
Yes, thanks, Jamie. I'm fortunate enough to be quite heavily involved in interviewing lots of people that apply as graduates or for vacation roles, summer internships and that sort of thing. And so it's something about my job that I really, really enjoy. And I'm always blown away by the next generation's talent and the diversity of skills that people bring to it. In terms of what people can do, there's probably a couple of things that spring to mind. I think the people that I find really shine in the interviews are the people that have a diversity of experience, and that's just trying lots of different things. When I'm interviewing someone for a graduate role, I'm not expecting that they've got all the technical skills that we would want of someone, because that's the sort of thing you'll learn in the workplace. But but that life experience and that experience in working with different people, different situations, that really shines through in interviews. One of the other things I'd say to people is to be genuine in interviews, and I often find we interview people and the answers are quite scripted, and I know people talk to each other and their friends have been interviewed, or they look online and these are the questions you're going to get asked, and so people come to interviews with pre-prepared answers, and you know, they might be good answers, but I've probably heard them 10 times already that day by that point. So, you know, the people that I find interview really well are the people that just show me who they are and what they're about and have a really good conversation with.
Are there any extracurriculars in particular that you would recommend that maybe from candidates you've seen that has helped them stand out from the rest in particular? So this is just a random question that I thought may be helpful for students too.
Yeah, I wouldn't say any one in particular, but I would say the more that you do, the more that you're putting yourself out there, the more that will shine through. You know, any circumstance that you put yourself in where you're going to be solving problems, I think is going to hold you in really good stead, and that can be exercises like this. That can be just in your job that you're doing while you're at school or university. That could be the clubs that you're in. Anything like that, I think, will hold you in good stead. That's not going to be a bad thing for you to have done.
Yeah. Of course. I'd like to pose this same question. I think, David, is there anything you'd like to add to this question? I know you work with many students, and so you obviously see a wide range of different extracurriculars, but in terms of preparing themselves for after high school, what extracurriculars or qualities can they learn through extracurriculars?
It's more, you know, Scott was talking about, you know, when we're going to, you're applying for a job. And the thing that I've found that has the most dramatic effect on all the students that I've dealt with is them doing an exchange year internationally while they've been in their degree. And when I left Otago, we were sending 600 or 700 students out a year on exchange. All my 3 children will tell you the exchange period internationally, wherever it was the making of them. And that's something that we've seen very much, the development of students in that way. The second thing is, I always tell students, well, be yourself in an interview, Scott's already said, but I always tell them to treat themselves a bit like a corporation, have a vision for themselves and have a mission for themselves, and look at what their values are, and to bring those values out when they're in an interview. And I often tell them one of the best ways of doing this is go and join a startup and an internship for a while. You learn very, very quickly what mission, vision, and values are in that. That's all I'd like to add there.
And how about you, Dina? Did you want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, sure. Just thinking about, you know, when it comes to extracurriculars, I think the important thing is to really make the most out of whatever you do. You know, time is precious. We're all really, really busy, but I don't think it's necessarily what extracurricular that you do that's important, but more so the fact that you're doing something above and beyond, and commit to whatever you choose 100%, you know, throw yourself into it and you'll gain the necessary value that you need in the process, whether it's learning another language, sports training, the chess club, you know, anything at all. Just commit to it. Make sure that you're engaging with your community through it, and find the activities, the opportunities rather, within those activities to lead, to take initiatives, and to work in harmony with those around you.
Awesome, great messages there. Thank you everyone for answering that question. Okay, we're coming to the end of some of our questions. So if you do have any questions you would like to ask any of the judges, feel free to add them in that Q&A section down the bottom of your screen. You can also ask questions about the case competition, as we do have Kerry and we have Annie on here too from the organising committee who will be able to answer for you. However, do take this opportunity to ask these judges questions that you'd like to know about anything to do with extracurriculars or about their career or about interviewing, anything you can think of. Use this time as you may not get another chance like this for a little while. But we'll move on to the final question for now, and this one is for you, Dina. So after school and university, you learn a lot about company culture. We were just talking about this before, values, goals, etc., that drive businesses. You align with some of them, but not all of them, which means your own values will be tested. So on a personal note for you, what values are you committed to and why? And is there anything students can learn from these?
Thanks, Jamie. I love this question about values and culture. So I would say I have 4 key values that I'm committed to, no matter where I am. And the first one, it's really about the importance of having a positive can-do attitude. This is, everything in the business world. You don't have to, and you're not expected to know all of the answers. But there is so much to be said about someone who faces every challenge and mountain, with a roadblock immediately, versus someone who is faced with a mountain, doesn't freak out, but says, okay, great, this is a challenge, but it excites me. I may not, know what the road ahead looks like, but I'm keen to take that first step and then every other step after that, and to learn along the way. So I think, number 1, positive can-do attitude. The second one is about, being early or on time. I really think this speaks volumes and can be the single most powerful tool that's within your own control. So, it really demonstrates order, enthusiasm, respect for yourself and for those around you, cohesion, and so many other important values. It's just such an important key nonverbal cue. The third key value that I'm really committed to is being nice to everyone, no matter what, when it comes to business, especially within your particular industry. You'll be amazed at how small the networks are. So, it's really important to establish a good rapport with everyone you come into contact with in the workplace, no matter what their role is, no matter what their title is. This will get you far. People move around a lot and work for other people, and word spreads really, really easily. So you just never know where your next opportunity might come from. And, I think this is really the true essence of integrity in the workplace, doing right by others and being professional at all times, keeping, any personal grievances you have about someone outside of the workplace environment. And then lastly, for me, the key value I like to live by, especially in the workplace, is about keeping an open mind. I heard this saying just the other day, that your mind is like a parachute. Unless you opened it, it won't work properly. Which means, being comfortable with being uncomfortable at all times. You can't know everything. Again, you're not expected to, but if you keep an open mind, you'll surprise yourself with the possibilities and opportunities that come up available to you.
I love that. I think
I love that one. Yeah.
Most of those as well, they're not just like workplace values, right? You can use those in life at any time. So I think I hope everybody was listening to all of those and maybe even took some notes down, but they're very valuable. So thank you for sharing those. We do have a question from Tom from Adelaide, and that question is, what makes or breaks a business pitch? So maybe we'll get everyone to say something briefly, but we'll start with Scott. What do you think makes or breaks a business pitch?
I think probably 2 things that spring to mind really quickly, Jamie. One is understanding what the brief or the scope of what you've been asked to do is, and the second is understanding the client or the audience that you're pitching to. And I think if you've got a good read on both of those, then you're going to hold yourself in good stead.
Awesome, thank you. We'll go to David next. David, what makes a business pitch?
Aspects of going into too much detail and getting people bored, and having a hook in it, or having some sort of hook in it that creates that element of interest and creates a bit of mystery about what you're doing, so that they want to know more, they want to ask more questions. That's, to me, is critical to get that pitch down the track.
Great. And then Dina?
I would say what makes it would be a really good presentation. Being convinced of your argument is the only way to convince the others of what you're saying as well. I think what breaks it would be not doing your background research. So, brainstorm every possible question that might come up and how you might go about answering it.
Great. That was a common answer. We had another Meet the Judges this morning from another region, and that was another answer as well. Make sure you feel confident in what you're saying. If you believe in your pitch, then other people will believe it too. If you can convince yourself, you can convince other people. Just project your voice and have that confidence. And that makes a big difference. Another question that we've got, do you have any podcast or book recommendations? We'll start with David this time.
Actually, I'm just trying to think of one. What's the one about the chasm crisis? Is always something that I like to read in whether something's going to succeed or not. The other thing is actually is more so about podcast, probably more, is to actually look what the concept of design thinking is all about, and just read that and apply that in what you're doing, and you might find it has an interesting impact on what you're doing.
Dina, how about yourself? Any podcast or book recommendations?
So I at the moment I'm going through, the Super Soul Sundays by Oprah. So not necessarily business focused, but, I do like, the Eckhart Tolle themed ones as well. It sort of just opens my mind to think in a different way, not necessarily business related, but I think it helps get the juices flowing and make you feel creative and just open to other possibilities and theories.
Do you listen to podcasts very often?
I do. When I'm I have a challenge. I know it doesn't sound like much, but September instead of 10,000 steps, because I'm usually glued to my computer screen working all day. So there's a 6,000 a day step goal. And I like to listen to a podcast whenever I'm doing that. Yeah.
Great. And then Scott, how about yourself?
Yeah, my podcast feed is a bit of a hodgepodge of sports podcasts and true crime podcasts. So I don't know that I have anything particular to recommend. If anyone needs a sport podcast recommendation, I've definitely got them covered there. In terms of books, I tend to be a pretty ferocious non-fiction reader, so I like my true crime and my history. There's a book I'm reading at the moment called Midnight in Sicily, about the mafia in Sicily, and it's written by an Australian author, which I'd highly recommend if that tickles anyone's fancy.
Great. I think we'll finish with one last question. I just saw one question pop up that will be really interesting. So the final question is, what main challenges have you met in your career path, or just one challenge that has stood out to you? We are running out of time, so just a quick answer on this one, if possible. If there's a story, a little bit longer, but maybe we'll start with David. Would you like to start with this one?
My biggest challenge was learning about the fishing industry in my first trip out in a fishing boat, which was a trawler and a seas that were pitching everywhere. That was the biggest challenge I've ever had, actually.
Great. Okay, Dina?
I'll say really succinctly, but two things. I think number one would be collaborating with business partners in South Korea. So cross-cultural collaboration was really challenging at first. So that was number one. And the second thing, which is a bit broader, would be, working for a company where your values are not necessarily aligned. I think that's, really important when you look at institutional logic, rather than just going after a company that's financially driven. If there are goals or values that are really important to you, then make sure that you align to a company that shares those values as well.
And Scott?
Yeah, I'd say self-doubt's one thing that I think can be an obstacle, and particularly when you go from school to university, and you might have been a high achiever at school, and then you find yourself with a different population of people that you're working with at university, and then you go into an employer that, it might be a high performance culture, and then you might second guess yourself again. And I find that constant change, can challenge people to have confidence in their own ability.
It's a tough one too. I feel like a lot of people struggle with that. It's quite common, and it's hard to get through. So thank you for sharing. that as well. Okay, we'll move to the dates again, just so we can get these up so nobody forgets. Take a screenshot if you need to. So we'll go through Saturday. Tomorrow, the case is released. Once again, very exciting stuff. Then on Sunday, we have a couple of workshops for everybody. We do have developing a deck and a pitch, and then we have a live Q&A with the CFO, which is the case partner. We can't tell you who it is at the moment. So come along to these. They will be recorded if you cannot make them, but we can send you that. They are best live, of course, because you can ask your questions, but you won't miss out. And then finally, we'll have that other one on Saturday, September 12th is super important, is the regional case digital submission. So you must submit your case on Saturday, September the 12th. So you have a week to work on your case, and then our judges will be looking through your cases. So thank you again to all of our judges, Scott, David and Dina, for coming along today and answering all of the questions. Once again, thank you to Tiger Global Management and PwC and Crimson Education for all bringing this together for everybody. ANZ, as I mentioned before, is the biggest region, the most sign-ups for this event, which means you all have more competition, but it means we have more of a chance that there may be somebody from here in the final as well. So this is really exciting. I hope you're as excited as we are, and we look forward to seeing your cases. So good luck, everybody, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.